We're live. We're live on Facebook and Instagram. Hey everyone, if this is your first time meeting me, my name is Lauren Cercione. I have been in fitness for 24 years now. In June will be my 24-year anniversary, and I help women get smoke show hot from the inside out. I'm very skilled at inner work and applying astrology and human design to the frozen emotions from early childhood that keep us sabotaging our progress or ghosting the habits that are necessary to get into your dream body. So I'm super excited to share this with you today because this placement in astrology has completely changed my life when I understood it and started applying it. So as you know, you could be a Pisces, an Aries, like most of us are familiar with our sun sign. You're like, yeah, I was born in December, so I'm a yada, yada, whatever. But most people do not know that there are so many other placements in our natal chart that are very well they can be used so well for us to unpack the emotions that are stuck in our body that we can't identify by name, but we only experience them with the sabotage patterns. So one of those is the Lilith placement. And the Lilith placement has to do with all the ways that we have been shamed or rejected. And if you're unfamiliar with what placements mean in astrology, the placement is an archetypal intelligence. An archetype is primordial energy. It's the energy that was the foundational energy, like the beginning, like the alpha and the omega. So when we have our natal charts of where planets and stars and solar system, or yeah, and other solar systems were when we were born, that archetypal intelligence is very uniquely formulated into our consciousness. And if you go along the belief that our soul is having the experience of life through being human, then the consciousness that we come in here with has a very specific design depending on where things were in the universe at the time of our birth. So when we're talking about a placement, we're talking about an archetypal intelligence and then the flavor of it for where it is in the house or where it is in the actual sign of the zodiac. So for the Lilith placement, this archetypal intelligence has to do with what's usually called the dark feminine, but dark feminine, like I don't like that name because immediately people think of it as in a negative way, a manipulative way. Like anytime you hear dark, like we're supposed to automatically think it's bad. But for me, when I hear dark or negative, what I'm actually thinking about is the negative space, the space in which something gets to be birthed from. So if you follow a highly positive perspective of the life experience, our consciousness is the light of the world. And the world is the dark matter in which we can create something. We can shine our light into the world to cause creation to form. And it's the mindset, which is the light, which is the consciousness, that is the thing that helps us create our dream body. Because we have to imagine what our body is going to look like at the end result of all of the diet and exercise habits. And the dream body fantasy is very, very similar to the fantasies that we had as kids when we didn't feel good, when we had a disconnection from our caregivers. And so when we use our imagination and fantasy and our astrology to help us become our best version, or specifically apply it to our dream body goals, the sky isn't even the limit. It's the most incredible thing. So when we're talking about the Lilith placement is where we are outside of the box, where we are thinking in misalignment with pop culture. Whatever the culture is that we are born into, the Lilith placement is how we are not conforming to that societal structure. And where Lilith is in each house and each part of the zodiac has a different flavor of where this outside of the box thinking shows up. And so for me, I want to share with you just two quick stories about how I recognize where my Lilith is. One story with a boyfriend that broke up with me in my 20s, and then another story with how I'm actually creating a business around a spiritual business around inner work with something that seems so shallow as getting smoke show hot. So story number one that shared with me, or that really helped me understand my Lilith placement, was I was dating a man in my 20s, and I feel like he kind of had two personalities. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're all young, right? We're figuring stuff out. So no judgment. But what happened was he had a certain type of personality when he was hanging out with his hospital friends. And, he would be drinking, there would be cigar smoking. And then when we went to church, he had a different personality on Sunday when he was assisting his friend with the youth group. So there was a very distinct contrast in who he was with one group of friends that were not church focused, and then another that were. And I hung out with him in both scenarios. And when I would go to church with him, I asked a lot of questions because from a very young age, the Bible did not make sense to me. And I always questioned, how is this factual? How are we supposed to prove that we're a good person because we have faith in something that really doesn't have anything to quantify it? And how do we have faith in something that has been translated multiple times, especially for political gain? So I had all these questions all the time. And one of his friends' wives, I had a conversation with her once, and I'm like, what's the problem? Like, I don't understand why he's so upset because I ask questions. And she put it to me like this, that if I was like a thin willow tree that would be blown in the wind this way or that, meaning all of my questions about why, that it meant that I didn't have enough faith. And that was this boyfriend's frustration with me. Like, okay. So then when it came time for the breakup, I was told that we were not equally yoked. And the equally yoked parable or metaphor is about two oxen that have a yoke around their neck, and they have to be balanced in strength for the plow to create the little rows for the garden, right, on a farm. So I was not equally yoked with him in my faith. So therefore, he could not be with me anymore. And that was how he broke up with me. So next story is, clearly, if you see my Instagram, if you see a lot of my videos, not a lot, but several of my videos on YouTube are actually rated R by YouTube censorship because I'm wearing a thong bodysuit in my photo shoot. So here I am on the internet, almost fully exposed, and I'm doing it because for us to step into who we want to be with our physical body, with our aesthetics, that most people want to change. It's a billion-dollar industry. Most people, especially in America, are obese. Most people, especially in America, are unhealthy and require prescriptions to keep certain organs working. So we know that we want to have an aesthetic transformation, right? We know that we want to feel sexy and sensual when we're having sex. We want to feel comfortable in our body in its totality. So I'm going to show up on the internet and display that because that's how I feel about my body. At the end of the day, it's a body. And at the end of the day, my body has been through so many injuries and so much pain that for me, I really see it as the experience of my soul, the vehicle for my soul to have the life experience. So for me, I am very out there with how much of my body I expose. So for me to have a spiritual business that is about our soul, but put it in the package of aesthetics, that's outside the box too. Because most people who are in the spiritual space don't want to focus on the body, and they think that this is incredibly superficial and not spiritual at all. So my Lilith is in Sagittarius, which has to do with and the 10th house. Yeah, and the 10th house. And my Lilith placement has to do with being outside of societal culture and religious culture. So when I learned about my Lilith placement, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes perfect sense. This makes perfect sense for the boyfriend that I had and how he broke up with me. This makes perfect sense for how I do a spiritual business with aesthetics. This makes perfect sense. And another thing that it really helped me understand was the depth of my intuitive knowing, the depth of my emotions, and the depth of the psychic ability to see how things connect behind the scenes. And so there was a lot of times where I was told I'm too dramatic, I'm too loud, I'm too much. I even got an email from a former client telling me that she felt like I was doing pornographic photos. And so of course I took the opportunity to coach her a little bit and say, well, that's just you uncomfortable about your body. Do you want to unpack it? Because we can't be upset with anybody unless that emotion is in us in some way. If we're judging anything about ourselves that we're rejecting, we're going to notice the thing that we don't like about people and want to reject them. So I have a lot of experience with this. And my Sagittarius Lilith placement really shows me how the amount of physical pain that I have had and the amount of injuries that should have taken me out and made me not able to be in the fitness business, now it makes sense that the depth of work that I had to do for those repressed emotions that were showing up in health problems, it makes sense that the Lilith placement has to do with religion and spirituality. Because once you get beyond the Abrahamic religions of well, I'm not even going to say that anymore because you know what? It's really Christianity. It's really Christianity that the spiritual texts before it became labeled Christianity were about the evolution of the soul and the evolution of consciousness through multiple lifetimes. So if the whole world knew that this is the evolution of the soul, that's what we're here for, and that there is polarized energy of light and dark, up and down, hot and cold. If everybody knew that pre the patriarchy, we would all be able to evolve and not be so judgmental with other people. Because what I have really noticed is that with the onset of Christianity specifically, how it was used to back the slave trade, how the Bible was rewritten specifically so that slaves could have a different version of the Bible to keep them suppressed. We are all suppressed under the guise of Christianity, as well as the structure that came in that removed the feminine aspect of our existence. So that depth of the Sagittarius makes sense of why I could exhibit too dramatic, too deep, too much. Don't talk about that. Nobody cares. But the reason that I care so much is because when we understand that this is evolution of consciousness, that this experience is exclusively for us as an individual on the soul level to expand our soul and grow, if we knew that, there would not be so much of the contrast that's harmful and abuse of power. So that's how my Sagittarius really shows up. And I've gotten really good at putting it together in a formula that increases my value for people as a fitness coach, and then also really inspires people to go even deeper into themselves. So here's how we apply it in the Fat Life. In the Fat Life, it's a 6-month group container or it's a 12-month private container. And it's so cool because you're doing several things that are necessary to transform your body on a spiritual, emotional level, but also so that you can get the body of your dreams. Because the only reason why you have not been able to get the body of your dreams and create what that look is in your fantasy is the emotions that are blocking it, is all the ways that you're actually afraid of succeeding. And so the Lilith placement plays into the fear of success. You may have heard that there's the fear of success and the fear of failure. They're two ends of the spectrum that originate in the inner child conditioning, where we're learning how to do life. But the thing with the fear of success, it doesn't show up as a statement in your head that says, I'm afraid of being successful. What it is sabotage, ghosting the habits, or undoing progress because there's a fear of rejection or shame if you actually get that body. So for me, it was like I had to work through so many fears that people wouldn't take me seriously, would just think that I was superficial, that I only cared about the body, that I only cared about being skinny, when that wasn't the case. And I even had a conversation with my training partner when I was getting ready to go on my cut 2 years ago. And I said, if when I get leaner, I'm actually just going to look skinnier because I'm 5'2". I have all this muscle. If the fat goes away, I'm going to be smaller. And there is a stereotype in the spiritual space where the more white women get spiritual, the skinnier they get. And how that's a really like kind of a gross stereotype that white women can be in. And I was like, I can't be that. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to be skinny. I'm trying to see as much muscle as possible. And it's like, you have to get over that. So the fear of success is a fear of actual alienation from other people and judgment and shame. And the reason why this is so under the surface and that we don't actually have a sentence in our head that says, I'm afraid of being successful. It's because on the level of the nervous system is always trying to connect with another nervous system, because connection on this physiological level means safety, means I am with another human being that is going to help keep me alive. We're a social species. We require connection with other people. So the reason why this relates to the inner child is that when we're in ages 0 to 3, especially, and also in ages 0 to 7, we are looking for a nervous system to nervous system connection where we can sense from the adults in the room that the environment is safe. And so that is what allows the body to function really well. And then that's what allows our brain waves and our emotional state to recognize that the world is safe. I am safe. But when there is a disconnection with the nervous system, or there is a dysregulation from the other adults in the room, or even on the TV, or even in the music that's on the radio, if our nervous system from the ages of 0 to 7 is getting dysregulated because of the influence of others, then we start to interpret and our brain starts to develop and our emotional capacity starts to develop in a way that's always on the lookout for danger, always on the lookout for death, because separation means death. A dysregulated nervous system sensation that the inner child is having from the adults in the room or the TV or the radio means death is coming. So when we really start to understand how the body is designed so that the body really becomes the how-to of life, right? Like we don't have an instruction manual that we're like, okay, when I'm 7, this is what I do. When I'm 8, this is what I do. The information gets stored in thoughts in the brain and emotions in the body, all based on the nervous system. So when we have this nervous system that might be in a dysregulated state because of separation, for instance, divorce. So if you have physical separation from a parent, even if the connection with the parent wasn't a healthy one, nervous system to nervous system, the child nervous system could go under threat because that other nervous system isn't around. If our parents become emotionally distant, or if the adults around us are emotionally distant, just think about the generation that's raised on devices. They're not being raised by another human being. They're being raised by their iPad and their phones. So what do you think society is going to look like when they're adults? It's going to be really scary. So we have these feelings of unsafety in the nervous system. And then as we get older, maybe when we're like getting to like 10 years old and above, now we actually have to really start fitting in with the peer group. So now we have another whole set of experiences that are going to get downloaded that tell us that you better act this way, you better dress this way, you better look this way, or else you will be shamed, you'll be made fun of, you'll be rejected. So we have all of this information that's stored in us. So then by the time we're an adult woman and we're like, I want to be hot. I want to feel good having sex with the lights on. I want to feel confident in whatever I wear. I don't want to be ashamed of my body. I don't want my body to dictate my mood. I want to look this way because this is what I actually want. That is in contrast to most of the energy and the thoughts that are stored in your body. So it's not that you won't do it because you know you're afraid of success. It's that those emotions and those thoughts are going to unconsciously, on a subliminal level, influence you and make you believe, you've been doing so good for 3 weeks. You can skip a day at the gym. You've been doing so good all week long with eating clean. You can totally go out for cocktails and pizza and dessert on Friday, which those things are fine to do. It's totally fine to skip a day at the gym. It's totally fine to go out for cocktails and pizza. But what's not fine is the mindset that is tricking you into undoing progress when you haven't been doing it long enough to sustain the results. There's a time and place for everything, and there's moderation in everything with your eating and your exercise. So this stuff is difficult to get through. And that's why when we apply the Lilith placement in the Fat Life with your personal training program, it helps you get objective into the ways in which you may be feeling rejection and shame and othered, just in general. Just the ways that you are thinking and doing and your personality is outside the box. So when we look at your we keep saying your Sagittarius, when we look at your Lilith placement, wherever it is in the zodiac, for instance, if your Lilith is in Virgo, you might feel so much pressure to be a perfectionist, so much pressure to do everything completely right. And if you don't do it right, then you're completely bad. You may feel afraid of being noticed if your Lilith is in Leo. You might be afraid of taking up space. So when we look at the Lilith placement and what house, so the houses let us know what area of life that energy is probably going to be experienced. And then the sign lets us know more of the flavor of that archetypal intelligence, that energy. So in the Fat Life, I actually show you how to find your Lilith placement. And then we work through it, we compare it to say, wow, like, okay, so this is what your Lilith is. This is the area of life that it's most likely going to show up in. This is the flavor of the emotions, the energy. Now let's take a look at the inner work that we did where we assessed your food, your feelings in food. Let's check out how you feel about food. Let's check out how you journaled about how you feel about your body when you look at yourself in the mirror. And when we're looking at the thoughts and feelings in your eating and your exercise, now, where is there a similarity within the energy of your Lilith placement? Because now, all of a sudden, the body does get to be the vehicle for the soul, because now you have a bigger, more expansive, objective perspective on the emotions that are keeping you stuck about your body. And then when you have a different view of your body, that it is here for the experience of your soul, you can actually get more objective with your dream body and not be so attached to it. And when we're not attached to the dream body, there's no fear of it. Because the attachment of the dream body makes us afraid that if we get it, we'll lose it. We won't be able to keep up with what's necessary to keep it. Or that no matter what we do, we will never be good enough to achieve it. And these are the common phrases that we hear, right? Too much. It's going to be too much effort to sustain the dream body if I arrive, so I'm not going to try. I'm scared of that on an unconscious level. And then no matter what I do, I will not be enough. The effort that I put in will not be enough to get to that dream body, so I'm not going to try either. We've heard the too much and the not enough, and they come from very specific places in your chart. The not enough comes from your Chiron placement, which is the wounded healer. And I'll share that with you in another live stream. But I wanted to share this with you because the more I understood my astrology, my archetypal intelligence, what my soul came here to experience on an energetic level, then the more my childhood experiences really made sense, because there were some pretty heavy experiences in my childhood that would be hard for even a grown-up to deal with, let alone a child. And so the more that we can get an objective view on our experiences, then we can get to the dream body in an easier way. And because we're doing things to get to the dream body, the inner work that we're doing to get there really lights up your whole life, really makes everything so much better. Your career better, your relationships better, everything starts to improve because of the inner work that you're doing with your body. So, and that's like another way that my Lilith placement is outside the box, because we're doing manifestation work with your energy because we're changing your life, but we're also doing the aesthetic work. But the stuff in between is really healing these emotions that are keeping us stuck. And it's healing our body through nervous system regulation and healing our body through a very specific workout plan that has worked for myself to really manage all of my skeletal abnormalities as well as my clients. So many of my clients come to me post surgery because they want to still be able to be fit and athletic, even within the limitations that they have. So that is your live stream today. If you want to join the Fat Life, I have a coupon for you. If you put in Lilith50, you will get 50% off your first month if you do the 12 months of the one-on-one, or if you do 6 months of the group. Your first month would be 50% off. So if you want to get started right now and you want to be able to get Smoke Show hot, and use your astrology, use your human design to help you regulate your nervous system and make peace with some of the things that are keeping you stuck in sabotage, now would be the time. So I'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful day. You can comment Lilith50 below, or you can DM me, and then I will send you the link if you want to do private or if you want to do the one-on-one. Bye.